Hi everyone and welcome to Toxiscandia, stories of a toxicologist living in Scandinavia. My name is Sveta and this is the second part of the video about the most dangerous and hazardous chemicals that are a real nightmare to any toxicologist. In the first part we talked about this massive fundamental groups of chemicals such as carcinogens and mutagens, reprotoxic chemicals, endocrine disruptors and neurotoxicants. And in this video we're going to talk about let's say milder chemicals, but still some of them can lead to very serious consequences such as cancer. So if you are interested in knowing what chemicals I'm talking about, please continue watching this video. If you haven't seen the first part of the video, please follow the link in the description. I will also try to remember and attach it in the first pinned comment. And today we are going to look at four another groups of chemicals that are real nightmare in some cases, and in some cases just a big problem to any toxicologist and also to people that are exposed to these chemicals. First group is sensitizers. Sensitizers are substances that can cause hypersensitivity or hypersensitive immune reactions on skin or in airways. These are the two most common routes. The mechanism basically works like an allergy, but a little bit more complex. So it is an immune reaction, like allergic reaction to something that our body considers not safe for us. This could lead to such symptoms as inflammation, rash if it's on the skin, or breathing symptoms such as difficulty to breathe, cough and other symptoms. It's important to note that this is not just an irritation of skin or the airways. There are also chemicals that can cause irritation, but here the important difference is the immune system that is involved in hypersensitivity reactions. So this is a complex reaction that involves different types of immune cells and immune molecules, and these reactions usually happen in as a chain reaction, and once this reaction has happened in the body, it usually lasts for very long and even can last forever. So once our body reacts to this substance, this means that it wouldn't be so easy to get rid of this hypersensitivity, and it might stay with us for the whole life. This is why this is kind of serious problem, especially in an occupational setting where people are exposed to the same substances, same chemicals every day. A good example is hairdressers that use a lot of chemicals, a lot of hair dye and other types of chemicals that can be very aggressive and can cause hypersensitivity reactions. So this would mean that after this reaction has happened, every time when hairdresser is working with this chemical, then the same reaction will happen, and this can be very unpleasant with very strong inflammation, strong rash, even pain in this area where the inflammation is happening. So it can be really dramatic. Some examples, if we're talking about hypersensitivity on the skin, a good example is nickel, which is a metal that can cause hypersensitivity reactions quite often. It can be an ingredient of jewelry or some accessories that people are wearing. So if the skin comes in contact with nickel in this accessories or jewelry, then the reaction can happen. That is why we often see that it's marked without nickel. This is because this hypersensitivity or allergic reactions to nickel. Chromium is the similar substance, similar metal that works like nickel, also in accessories or jewelry. There are also other substances such as formaldehyde. This is actually the substance that is present in some hair dyes and other chemical substances. Fragrances, colorants and preservatives in cosmetics. This is quite a huge problem because these are the chemicals that we are all exposed to as customers. So here I suggest that we should be really conscious about what kind of fragrances, colorants and preservatives are in our products, our cosmetic products, in everyday products that we use, because these are the substances that are prone to cause hypersensitivity reactions that, I should remind you, could stay with you forever. There are also some substances that can cause hypersensitivity reaction in airways, so breathing problems such as mineral oils, for instance, wood dust, some adhesives and solvents. So every time you are exposed to these substances, working, reconstructing your house or something like that, you should always think about protective equipment, use mask and gloves that will minimize the risk of hypersensitivity reaction. And one thing to mention also, as a natural toxin, mold can be substance or like microorganism that can cause hypersensitivity reactions. It's actually not the mold itself, but the toxin that mold is excreting into the atmosphere. So sensitive people can develop allergic and hypersensitivity reactions, usually in breathing system, but also on the skin. Group number 2, microfibers. This is kind of one of my favorite topics because I have worked with microfibers at my workplace for a while, and this is a very complex topic which is not clear for anybody, I think, even for those who have worked closely with it. So microfibers are those small and long particles that are present in some materials. There are some fibers that are very good for us, for instance those that are found in vegetables. You have heard of fiber. That is also a very healthy part of our diet. So these fibers are good for us, but there are of course those that are present in chemicals and in chemical materials that are not that good for us. Why is that? Because these particles are so small and so long that they get stuck inside our airways typically, but also can be stuck in other systems and organs of our body. And a good example that has been unfortunately very well known is asbestos. Asbestos is a natural material that is a microfiber, and it was used quite a lot as an insulation material in houses around 50-70 years ago, and it is still present in some houses, and it is okay if it's hidden under the paint or under other materials, but when we open up the wall that has asbestos, it's always very important to remember protective equipment, because asbestos can be really dangerous. It wouldn't cause symptoms right away, maybe some irritation of course because of the dust, but usually it's a long-term effect that would appear many years or even decades later. These types of fiber are very small and very long, so they get really stuck in our lungs, even in the smallest part of our lungs that are called alveoli, and they can even transfer into the membrane of our lungs, into pleura, and there cause an inflammation and cancer as a long-term effect. There are also other fibers, such as refractory ceramic fibers, that are very small and very long. This is the critical thing, the dimensions of the fiber. Diameter is very important, but also the length. And these refractory ceramic fibers can act like asbestos, also be carcinogenic. There are also other types of fiber that can be small and long, but another thing that is very important here is degradation or biodegradation, how fast this fiber degrades in our body, because if it degrades fast, then even if it's stuck somewhere, then it just disappears with time. So fibers that are not very persistent, that are degraded fast in the body, they are not considered that hazardous. However, if a toxicologist sees word fiber in front of their eyes, it always draws our attention, and this is due to these many parameters that we need to consider before concluding if fiber is safe to use or not safe, and what type of protection people should use when it is necessary to deal with fiber at work or at home if we are dealing with reconstruction work, for example. Group number 3, nanoparticles. Nanoparticles are also very, very small particles, not as long as fiber. They can be round particles, for example, but they are less than 100 nanometers in diameter. And nanometer, I should remind you, is 1/1,000,000th part of millimeter. So it is a really small particle. Dangerous thing about nanoparticles is that due to their small size, they are capable of getting inside the cell and even inside the nucleus, and then they could interact with our DNA, breaking it, changing it, causing mutations, and then causing development of cancer cells as long-term effect. And another problem is that we don't know much about nanoparticles because we have been engineering nanoparticles, we as a humanity, not so long, so we haven't really been dealing with nanoparticles for that long time, and I think in the future we will find out more. But nanoparticles are also quite widely used in modern pharmacology, because some of them actually can be good for us, can act as a vehicle for drug delivery inside the cells, and in this case, nanoparticles have to be safe, non-reactive. And usually lipids, for instance, are considered quite safe, particles that are not very reactive, that wouldn't really interact with our cells or DNA and can just deliver the drug inside the cell, and that's it. Another example of drug delivery particle is a gold particle, and there has been some research on gold particles, and it has been established that if the gold particle is very, very small, smaller than 10 nanometers, then it has no capacity to interact with anything in our cells. So in this case, the smaller the better, but which is not the case always. But gold particles are also considered non-reactive, usually very stable, so they can be used for drug delivery. There are also non-engineered nanoparticles, of course, that are formed during industry work, during different processes, such as welding is the one process that forms nanoparticles. That is why it's very important to use protective equipment when welding. And of course, as usually, breathing, inhalation is the worst route of exposure also to nanoparticles, and if we're exposed through ingestion or through skin, it's not that concerning compared to breathing, because then the nanoparticles can go into the lungs and then directly transfer into the bloodstream and go into the organs and systems of our body. The worst problem with nanoparticles, of course, is occupational setting, industry, where nanoparticles can be quite reactive, and there can be a lot of them formed during different processes. General population is not usually that much exposed to nanoparticles, so this is not like a great problem for us common people, but of course it can change in the future when we will be engineering more nanoparticles, we as humanity, for different purposes, and also as air pollution from industry and from fuel combustion, for example, there can be nanoparticles present, so this can become a problem at some point. And fourth group, the last group for today, is persistent bioaccumulative and toxic substances, so-called PBT substances. The issue with these substances is that they are usually not soluble in water, so when they go into the environment as a result of industry work or just going into the waste from somewhere, then they would not dissolve in the water, but they usually would dissolve in fat tissue. And fat tissue is a tissue that is very much present in fish, for example, and in some animals. And then when we are eating fish or eating meat, for example, then we are getting exposed to these substances. They can also be present in the drinking water as non-soluble component, and then we can be exposed through water too. As is obvious from the name, PBT substances are very, very persistent in the environment and can exist hundreds or even thousands of years. So they are sometimes called forever chemicals, at least some types of PBT substances, and it is nearly impossible to excrete these substances from the body, human body or animal body, and they will probably stay inside us for forever, and our body is not made to excrete these types of substances. Our metabolism is not capable of doing that, unfortunately. It is not very clear how these substances would interact with our body, but it is clear that they will interact probably. And the worst part is interaction with hormonal system, because it is very well tuned, and even small changes in the system, in the hormones, can lead to huge consequences, especially during critical windows of development, such as development of fetus or a child, but also for adults it can be quite unpleasant. Although I am talking mostly about artificial substances, there are also natural substances that can be PBT, such as mercury, which comes from volcanic activity and stays in the nature. You cannot get rid of it. And mercury is something that we cannot easily excrete from our body either. So mercury accumulates in fat tissue and then acts as PBT substance. But mostly, of course, these are artificial substances that we have produced ourselves as people. You probably have heard something of Pfas, perfluorinated substances, that are used in Teflon, in Gore-Tex membranes, in the clothing, also in firefighting foam or flame retardants. Pfas are not very dangerous for us when we use those things, clothing or Teflon, kitchenware. This is not the problem. But when we get rid of these things and they go into the waste, into the environment, and go into the water, into the soil and other parts of our planet, then it is very bad, because they will stay there forever. They will contaminate water, soil, fish, animals, and then we will get it back in a more dangerous form, and that will become a problem. It's very poorly understood how Pfas and other PBT substances interact with our body, as I already said, and how to solve this environment problem. We need to stop producing PBT substances, obviously, but how to get rid of those that are already there, it's not clear. And this is just a moment to remember that human health and environment are very interconnected, and we cannot just use tunnel vision when we are considering human health and toxicology. We should also pay at least some attention to environmental problems, ecotox problems, and this is a perfect example, PBT substances, how we as humans are interconnected with the environment and how it is important for us. Sorry for the sun, it means that it's time to wrap up. I hope this video was informative for you, that you've learned something new. Maybe you got some ideas about this hazardous and dangerous substances. Maybe it would be a first step to modify your own life somehow, such as not to use that many fragrances and colorants and cosmetics, and not to buy so many things with Pfas that would go into the environment or other things. But in any case, I wish you all the best. I hope you stay healthy and strong and happy. And if you like this video, please click on the like button, please subscribe, and also click on the notification button to get more videos on toxicology and other things that I talk about on my channel. And thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.